I did a thing. I've installed a 3D background on this Juwel Rio. I've got feelings about it, but before I get into the review, I'll tell you the backstory. When the aquarium was delivered, there was some cosmetic damage on the back, and I did thoroughly investigate it with the company. It is just cosmetic, not structural. So on the back of that, they very fairly gave me 10% off the tank in terms of a credit note. I was 100% down with that. Damage at the back of the tank I'm never going to see, and it gave me some monetary value, if you like, to play about with. I'd always been interested in these. I think they look cool. Always wanted to try them, but the price of them kind of always put me off. However, considering it was essentially free money, I thought, well, we'll go for it. I was able to get two of the big back plates and the panels that cover the filter, but this is one of the things that has annoyed me about the whole process here. For the Juwel 450, you actually need 3 of these back plates. In fact, you don't even need 3, you need 2 and a bit. Wee bit annoying that. They are relatively expensive, so to have to buy 3 of them when you've already laid out for the biggest tank they do in this range, I think that's a wee bit unkind, really. I wouldn't even mind if you needed the full 3 plates, but like I said, you only need a bit of the third one. Before I show you that, I've laid them flat on the desk here, and you can see when you put them together, they're hardly seamless. There's a huge gap that runs down there, and the pattern doesn't even match up. If I'm honest, I'd prefer 2 or 3 different plates where all the patterns match up, but that's maybe asking too much. And looking at this view, they barely slot together, do they? For 55 to 70 quid, depending where you get them, a piece, I want them to slot together perfectly. And I want the pattern to match. Anyway, back to the background and how many pieces you need. To go for the left of the tank all the way up to where the filter sits, on the right hand side, you're talking roughly 130 centimetres, right? Now, the panels are only 60 centimetres each. Less than that, in fact, once you slotted them together, right? So you definitely need at least another 10 centimetres. At 55 or 70 notes, for somebody that's already bought the most expensive tank in your range, I think that's out of order. I get it's not a problem for everybody, right? Those with smaller tanks, maybe the 2 will be fine, right? And I know that they can't make them any bigger because these panels barely fit through the centre braces as they are. So why not offer the option of 3 panels that fit the 450 for the same price? Again, it's not about having to buy 3 panels, it's that I'm only using 10 centimetres of the third one at an extortionate amount. Now, to be fair, it does tell you need 3 of the panels on the back of the box, but I wasn't looking at it in the store. I was looking at it online, and it wasn't immediately obvious. Oh, and then we get onto the filter plates, right? Now, I couldn't find one specific to the 450. The sites online say it fits all Juwel aquariums, right? When you look at the back, no mention of the 450. Vision 450, fine. Rio 400. Why does that matter? Well, for the front plate, for starters, the lines don't match up exactly right. So, Juwel's guidelines that tell you how to cut this thing doesn't give you the 450 option that matches exact, but you can figure that out. Not too much of a problem. However, the bit that's meant to go on the side of the filter doesn't even cover it. Oh, maybe it's my fault. Maybe there is one for the 450. I did search online, and I could not find one, so I've ended up with this. I was thinking it was going to fit to the end, to the back of the tank, and I would cut a hole for the return pipe and for the vent down the bottom there, but this is not good enough. I was kind of thinking the edges that meet together would be like a 45-degree angle and make a nice join without me having to cut it myself, but they just don't. That said, the pieces are very, very easy to cut. The hacksaw blade that they give you with each section just sails through them. Does make a wee bit of a mess. You do get a wee bit of dust, but that's to be expected. You might want to do it outside if you're not happy to do that in-house, especially if you don't have a wee helper like I do. Securing it to the back of the tank is pretty simple. You just get a tube of this Connexo. I believe you're able to use this for attaching corals and stuff, but perfect for your backgrounds. It takes anywhere between 24 and 72 hours to cure. So I would 100% not recommend trying to do it with a tank full of water like I'm doing here. Part of the problem is these things want to float. So the more water you've got in your tank, the more buoyant they are, the more likely they're to pull away from the bonding. I had to come up with some pretty genius ways of holding them in place until they were secure, but I wouldn't recommend those methods to anybody else, and therefore I'm not going to show them. If you're going to add a background, I would do it before you fill the tank, or have an option for emptying the tank and keeping your fish somewhere else while you do it. I managed it though, and despite all my grumbling, I think it looks really cool. I'm really happy with it. It might not look as striking as a blue background I had before, but I do feel it looks more natural, and I'm hoping the fish appreciate that. I think it looks fantastic, in fact. I'm delighted that I've done it. I really, really, really like it. And on that score, I think it's 100% worth it. It's a project you're going to want to take your time with, even when your tank is empty. If you measure wrong, if you cut wrong, you're going to have a wee bit of a disaster. If you don't give it enough time to cure, you're going to have a disaster. But I think it looks really effective. I'm thinking it might look even better once we get some algae growing on it. I've actually ramped up my photo period, hoping to get some algae on there. And I'm considering maybe growing some plants up it, maybe some anubias in some of the cracks. Haven't really decided yet. We'll see about that. I'll need to say a big thank you to Pabs. He done this on his tank, so I hit him up with hundreds of questions and was looking for advice, and he was very quick and willing to give it, so I really appreciate that. Thanks, man. Would I recommend it? Yeah, I think I would. No, yeah, I would. I would recommend it. Would I recommend it on a budget, on my budget? No way, man. If I wasn't getting it for free, I wouldn't have been able to do it. And maybe I've made some mistakes. I'm sure people can point that out. I'm sure people will say in the comments below places where I went wrong. And if that's the case, then that'll help out other people maybe looking to do the same thing. So I welcome that. I did have to pay for the third piece. And this is it here, all 10 to 12 centimetres that I used. And this is the offcut. The offcut. Don't know what I'm going to do with this. Maybe make it into a wee coffee table to match my tank. Or if a storm blows my window in, I'm maybe use it to cover that up. 55 smackers, and I've got 3/4 of it left over. I mean, Juwel, I love your stuff, man, but for